If God was here, I turn my back. And how I know I turned my back? Because I was actively in sin. Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Soulmates podcast. Let's get some smell goods going. Yes. Set a little. Oh, hold up. Gotta set a little tone. I'm trying to set a tone. Oh, that smells so good. Yes, how y'all feeling today? I hope all is well. Thank you for coming on the podcast and watching. So, today I am feeling great. I have been focusing on my relationship with God and allowing that to help me move in spaces like this, right? And because I know that it's like I have so many things that I want to do, but I'm also aware that I need to trust God in the process to help me in that, because none of these things I can do alone. I'm telling you guys, I cannot do these things by myself. When I try, it's confusion, it's self-doubt, imposter syndrome, all kinds of things I start to experience when I try to, do these things by myself. But I am here today, alive, well, and breathing. So let's just get right into this episode. So today I wanted to talk about what was your rock bottom. And trust and believe, I had many. I really had many of those. But by the grace of God, I'm here today able to talk about it, right? And so I wanted to discuss this today because when I think about healing, right, when I think about getting better in life, it's like you got to be honest with yourself. We have to be honest with ourselves to say, this is where I was, this is what I did, and, this is how it affected me. And so I'm ready to tell my story. What was my rock bottom? The one that I'm going to tell, one of the ones that stood out to me the most, because all of it, everything is connected. But this particular time in my life was very, very, very vital to me. And it was in around 2017, 2016, right? My friend just passed away. He was killed, and I was there. And that really was like, again, I already have been struggling in life, period, right? But when I experienced that, it did something to my spirit differently. One, because I was there, but two, it was the reality that set in. Like, oh my God, it felt like, okay, wait, life is getting real. And the person that passed away, this was a best friend to me. This was a person I considered my other half. We were like this. I'd known him since we were literally young kids. And for the first time in my life, I lost a friend that was never coming back. And it hurt me so bad. I'm talking about, like, I was scared, okay? I was genuinely scared. I experienced a real life battle with PTSD that I've never seen before. And it brought a lot of anxiety onto me that I didn't realize at first. I did not realize at first. But over time, things started to like come up. You know how like there things happen to you that are tragic, but you may like put it behind you in the back of your head, or you just try to forget about it because it hurts so bad. But in this particular case, everything that may have been there, every thought, every feeling, every mental unstableness, what like whatever you can think of, depression, sadness, anger, insecurity, it brought it all up to the surface. And so I just felt like this. I genuinely felt laid out down on the ground. And you know what? After that happened, it was a self, I had to check myself to say, what are you doing with your life, right? When life is showing you it's short, right? When life is showing you at any moment it could all be over. What are you doing in your life now? And I genuinely, I had these desires to make change. I had the desires to be better in life. It was always there. I always had the drive. But I was so mentally unstable and I was so heartbroken and I was so undisciplined within myself that, I couldn't help but run to things to cope. And, whether that had been relationships, smoking, drinking, just wanting to be seen, and just a whole bunch of stuff. And when this happened, I just learned so much. Like, I need to make a change. Like, I genuinely need to make a change. If I don't change now, when am I gonna change? And so that was the beginning to an end, if that makes sense. So fast forward 1 year later, it's like that happened, but I went on a rampage. And so I knew all of these things in my head, but I didn't get to the point where I was able to like put it into works. And so I went on a rampage, you guys, from 2016 to 2017. Okay. I was losing it. Full transparency, like, to know me during that year or to be involved with me during that year, I was a mess. I was quick-tempered. And, I've been quick-tempered in the past, but I feel like it was different. And I think it was because my soul was fighting for me at that time. Like, get it out, get it out, get it out. You need to get it out because you are done with this. After this, this is it. It is over. And so I think I was in that transitioning phase where it was like I was hurting so much. And so I was like getting the last of it out of me so that once it was over, it was over. And trust and believe I got it out. When I even think about the things that I was doing during that time, I was like, I had to apologize to some folks. It's not funny, but I really had to apologize to some people because, oh my God. And it was some beautiful souls who were there for me, and they put up with me, and they were so kind, and they were so patient and so loving and so caring. And I'm just so blessed in that way as well, that I was definitely blessed with some beautiful souls who saw my potential, and I was also able to help as well during that time period because, I always had a sense of self. I always, knew things beyond my means. I always was ahead of my time in a way. And so even while my actions weren't a representative of who I was in spirit, I had connections and I had experiences that would show you, how mature I was and, who I was and at my heart, even though I was hurting. And so 2016, again, I was out, I was drinking every weekend. I was always buying clothes. I was trying to take pictures every weekend, post every weekend. I really was doing a lot. I was meeting all different kinds of people and hanging out with all different kinds of people, just really trying to distract myself from myself. I was definitely serial dating. That was a thing for me. Truly and honestly, I felt myself not wanting to be alone at all. And I was scared to be alone too, because again, sometime when I would go to sleep at night, I genuinely would be scared to sleep in the dark. And, this is something I experienced as a child, but when my friend passed away, it it started to come back again because I was just having flashbacks and, just feeling scared overall about death and stuff like that. And so, yes, I was serial dating. I was in a whole bunch of different situationships. I was just completely out of my mind. So 2017 comes around, and God is so good. I tried to take full control of my life, and God said, absolutely not. You tried that already. It's my turn now. And I love him for that. But before we got there, I was like, you know what? I am just going to work on being stable, right? Like not even healing, right? I want to live a stable life. So in my mind, the success, to be successful out of all of that, going through all of that, was to get my own house, have a good paying job, and just basically be financially stable and do the big girl stuff. Mind you, at this time, I was 21 and 22 years old. And so it was like, looking back, I can say I definitely wasn't fully thinking about it the right way. But in the moment, you're like, no, I want to get out of survival mode. I'm tired of living this way. I'm tired of living in these environments. I'm tired of feeling pressured and all of this stuff. I need to get out of this environment, and maybe that will help me. And the reality was, I really needed to heal. I really needed therapy. I really needed God more than anything, because I wasn't even mentally stable enough to have my own place or have a well-paying job. And the reality is, because of the responsibility. It's not that I couldn't do it. It's the responsibility that comes with those things. I feel like we don't fully realize, like, and I proved myself right at that time, because genuinely I would call out of work all the time. Because I wasn't ready mentally, right? I wasn't ready mentally. I would call out of work all the time. I would be so tired. I would stay up late. And I just wasn't fully disciplined enough to, maybe I could have obtained the things, but I wasn't able to sustain the things. And that's more important to me personally. I was trying to do the external work without doing the internal work, and it showed. But by the grace of God, I was working 2 jobs, 7 days a week. And that was something that I did. That was my idea. I'm going to work to save this amount of money for this amount of time. I'm going to move out and I'm going to start my YouTube channel. I thought I had it all figured out. Long and behold, God showed me, how you going to work you worried about the money, right? You think if you have, and that's a part of the survival mode, right? That's a part of living in poverty, or just not having a good relationship with money. You automatically want the money to fix the spirit. You automatically want the money to fix your mind, to fix your thinking, to fix your heart, to fix your life. And God really showed me, like, you're depending on that. You're idolizing your finances. You think your finances could do what I could do for you. And it was true, because I was able to sacrifice my health. I was able to sacrifice my body, working 2 jobs, 7 days a week, to obtain this amount of money, to be financially stable. In theory, it sounds good. You work hard for this long time, and after that, I'll be able to work part-time. The point was to save a lot of money, work part-time, right? And then have time for myself. And so it was like, work hard now, and then work hard now, work less later. But it was deeper than that. And I feel like that's what God was showing me. Like, we don't have a relationship. It's clear. And because you think that that's going to save you. And even if your plan was to work, then it wouldn't have lasted long. And so I really needed actual help. So while I'm working these 2 jobs, I'm fully, just becoming weary, exhausted. And it was a lot. And I was trying my best to hold on, because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. And the reality was that every time I felt like I was getting somewhere, something always came up. And this is the rock bottom part for me, because I started to fall into the distractions. Oh my gosh. Just thinking about it makes me tired. I literally started to fall into the distractions where I wasn't drinking. I stopped drinking, right? 2 jobs, 7 days a week. I don't have time to go out. I'm not drinking. I am focused. God had revealed himself to me, and I started to build my relationship with God. I started to focus on my spirituality and healing and growing and learning myself. Oh, notice I had to tone it down for this portion of the video because, hold on, I really need to dial this in. I was going through a lot. And God said, you need stillness. You need quiet time. You need isolation. Oh, this is so good. And so God had isolated me. And it was one of the best experiences I had ever had. I'm talking about I was reading every day. I was watching church sermons every day. I had notes on notes on notes about the word of God. Haven't even picked up a Bible yet, but I had notes on notes on notes about the word of God, and I still have it. And that was because every day I was seeking his word. Every day I was seeking to be renewed. Every day I was trying to figure out who I am, why I am, and how could I overcome. And when I say when the enemy sees you trying, when the enemy sees you building that relationship with God, he will send a distraction. And I, who had just came out of serial dating, right? Who had just came out of excessive drinking and consuming all of these things that I was doing and being around a bunch of people. I just came out of that. It hadn't been that long. But I had months where I was isolated and I was doing my thing. And even though I still had to put in the work because I still was working 2 jobs, God was giving me strength though. Right? And that's one thing about God. Even when we step out on our own faith, some way, somehow, he will say, you know what? I'll use it for my good. And that's exactly what he was doing. But the enemy said, I know exactly how to get her. He knew exactly how to get me. And one day I went out. The first day I went out in months. All it took was one time in my life, in that time period, was changed. Slowly but surely, right? It wasn't like right off the bat. But little by little, I seen how I was moving away from God again. Like little by little. Like at first I was trying to maintain both, do both. Like I wasn't drinking at all. And I was like, you know what? I'll just drink wine. And that's the first mistake I made, where I was trying to have a happy medium between my relationship with God and what I felt called not to do, and like doing what was not so bad. Keep in mind, everybody's situation is different. Okay. This is just my personal experience. I felt like there was no need for me to drink. So me even saying I'll just have wine it was a mistake, because either way I wasn't ready. I wasn't disciplined enough to even be in the presence of alcohol, right? Because that's how those lustful thoughts, those lustful actions, and all of the things that I was doing that I probably wouldn't have did sober, I was doing under the influence, right? And so you start missing people you'll never miss. You start thinking about things you'll never think about, and you start feeling like you're missing out on something because you feel elevated in that moment, right? You feel like you're on a high, and so you start craving all of these things, and that's really that spirit in you. Like alcohol is a spirit, okay? We get it. Listen, we getting deep today. Soulmates podcast. We gotta touch the soul with this one. Alcohol is a spirit. Okay, that's another story for another day. And so before you knew it, I basically was hanging out again. I was drinking again, smoking again. I was back into another situationship after I was single for months. I wasn't talking to nobody, absolutely nobody. Okay, not even talking to a person. And before you knew, I was back in another situationship. And it that was how the enemy got me. The enemy knew, what was my downfall, which was one, situationships, and obviously going back outside, being around the crowd, being in environments that were only meant for drinking, smoking, lustful things, and just being out of tact with yourself. Now, I'm not saying that these things are bad, though, but it was bad for me, especially at that time, right? And so some people, when you don't have the spiritual maturity or even the discernment for certain things, you have to stay away from it. Like, that's just the reality. And so I learned the hard way. And that was really when my rock bottom truly, truly hit, because I went through a deep, deep, dark night of the soul. Deep, dark night of the soul where I was fighting. My spirit was fighting for her life. It was like, girl, you had it. You was right there. What happened? I was going this way, y'all. If God was here, I turned my back. And how I know I turned my back? Because I was actively in sin, like actively in it. Like it was getting worse. It was getting worse by the day, by the second, by the month. And it's something that took over me for like, I want to say 2 to 3 years. I was in, this realization of, oh man, I messed up. And then I got sick. And then sickness was fighting me. Okay. Oh my God. It's no way I'm be able to cover this all on one episode. Let me see how long I've been talking, because 22 minutes, not bad. Okay, so we got a few minutes. I got sick, and I wasn't sleeping, right? I wasn't getting good rest. I still was working every day. And I genuinely couldn't think straight. Brain fog, fatigue. I was having pains in my stomach. My pelvic floor was out of whack, weak. My bladder was out of control. It was a mess. Okay. Every single day I was feeling terrible. Keep in mind that I still was trying to sustain this lifestyle that I had already started, because at that point I felt like it was all I had. At that point I felt like I was so ashamed and embarrassed that I was like, I have to make this work so that I feel better about myself. And so instead of just completely just withdrawing from the situation, which is everything, right? It wasn't one thing in particular. It was everything. I genuinely needed to completely withdraw. And I was doing that, but it wasn't enough, because it was like I was depressed. I was tired. I was sad. I was anxious. I was feeling sick. It was a lot. And every single day I woke up feeling ill. Every night I went to sleep feeling ill. And I genuinely thought it was no way out of that. I'm telling y'all, in my mind, you couldn't convince me that I was going to get out of this. It felt so deep and so dark, especially because it was one thing for you to be having like mental instability. But when it became physical, When you're struggling mentally, physically, and spiritually all at one time, that was rock bottom for me. Nothing could compare, but like, because it was just like I was hurting so bad. And then you got to remember, time is still passing, so there are other things that are happening as time is going on, that's adding on to it. My aunt passed away, my godmother passed away, and so I lost two more people after seeing my best friend die. It was like, oh my gosh. And I just didn't know what to do with myself, especially because I went back to a space that God had just saved me from. And so, in conclusion, I feel like it was dark. It was so dark. And I just remember crying every day. I remember writing to God every day, praying on my knees, God, please help me, right? And it was just so much. It was just so much. And I really just wanted to be in a peaceful situation. You know, I didn't have peace nowhere. There was nowhere I went and it was peace. Nowhere. And especially because I felt so drained mentally and physically, where I didn't even have the energy to pray. Like, it was so bad. I couldn't even talk. Okay. I felt like I wasn't even a person, literally. And it was a lot. And even trying to jog my memory right now of that is draining me. And so my rock bottom for me was just when I completely fell deeply into sinning. And I knew the difference because when I got out of it for that portion of time and I got back into it, I genuinely felt the difference between being isolated and God healing me to being in places I shouldn't have been in. You feel it. You like, even when I tried to be happy, there was always, spirit was always talking to me little by little. Like, there were nights, like there were moments, like there were arguments, there were conflicts. There were so many different things. Like, and one thing I will say is that when you are not where you're supposed to be, God will not give you peace in that situation at all. Like, you could try your hardest. I don't care what's going on. There will not be peace some way, somehow. And the way that God was helping me in, that time frame, things I wasn't even looking for was being revealed to me, especially about people. Like, this person is not good for you. This person is acting like this, but they're really like that. God was showing me. He was showing me. But the bad thing about it is that when you are around people in places that you don't belong, you start to take on their energy, right? And then you start to be double-minded. That imposter syndrome comes from dealing with people who are insecure, right? And so now you're not sure of yourself, but it's because you're dealing with somebody, or you're around environments that have low vibrations. And so it's now sucking you in, right? And now you're like, whoa, what's happening to me? I'm thinking things, I'm feeling things that I never even thought or felt. Who am I, right? And so I completely was stripped away of my purity. Like, my spirit was being pulled away from me. And it's like literally like the enemy using these things to pull you away from yourself, and which essentially pulls you away from God, right? If you're not thinking right, if you're not in your right mind, if you are consciously always making bad decisions and feeling like you have no hope, no help, and you're going to drinking and relationships and people and lust and sex to satisfy a void, to fulfill a void that only God can fill, yeah, it's going to get dark and it's going to get deep. And the reality is, a lot of times we're dealing with people who are doing that and using you to do that. And so we got to be mindful of the people that we deal with and the places that we go and the reasons why we go, right? And so you don't have to have bad intentions, but if it's not spiritually aligned, it's not worth it. And so my rock bottom really taught me a lot. And it's just, it's a lot, right? But it's a journey, and we're on that journey. We're on that path together. So now we're gonna take a caller for today. So let's go ahead and see who is coming on the Soulmates podcast today. Hey, hey, welcome to the Soulmates podcast. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking with?
Moya.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm getting yourself.
I'm doing good. I am very excited to have you are my first call in. So thank you for showing up on the podcast
Oh,
today.
I feel
To
special.
yes,
Thanks for
I
having
feel
me.
special. You Thank you for coming. So I have a topic that I was speaking about today, and it was regarding
Okay.
what is your rock bottom? And so I was basically talking
Ooh.
about the period in time in my life, which was between 2016 and a few years after. Basically, 2016, my friend passed away. I started working two jobs, and
Mm.
then just basically I was going through it. I was going through a lot. I went on a rampage, drinking, smoking, going out, hanging out. And then God had brought me to him and stopped me from doing all of that stuff. And then my rock bottom, that my friend passing away was like the beginning to an end, but I feel like I hit rock bottom
Mhm.
when I was in my relationship with God and he was helping me. And then some way, somehow I ended up back going, doing the same things, getting back into relationships. And everything after that, I just spiraled, ended up getting really sick, not feeling well. And it was just a mess. And so I would love
Mhm.
to hear from you about if you don't want to explain, what was your rock bottom, or just give us like a brief testimony about, what did your rock bottom teach you, or just a little bit of everything.
Mm. Ooh. Rock bottom. I feel like most of my life was rock bottom.
Chill.
Wait, hold on.
We gotta chill. Yo, you know what's crazy? Oh my god! You know what's crazy? I didn't say that, but I literally said in my video, like, I had so many rock bottoms, but I was like, I'm gonna tell the one that is more significant to what I'm going through now, like I guess the last one that I've experienced so
Yeah.
far.
No, I feel like no, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like most of my life was rock bottom because my life wasn't surrounded by God.
Ooh,
A lot of my decisions I made was selfish and self-inflicting. I
oh my
didn't
gosh.
involve him in nothing. So it just was just rock bottom after rock bottom. I only involved God when it was like I'm at my wit's end. I can't take this. Like, God, help me out. I done promised him. I done swore to him. And he would help me out. And I would wind up in the same situations because of myself. So I just feel like until I started involving God into my life is when I got out from being at the bottom. I'm able to like be convicted. I'm able to make certain different choices that I wouldn't have made for myself when I was just in my flesh and dealing with really things too, as far as like abandonment issues. I ain't got none of my parents around. I'm in an abusive relationship that I don't think it's abusive. I think it's normal because that's all I see is dysfunction and abuse and all these things around me that's so toxic that we take on and make habits for ourselves that we think is normal when it's not. So a lot of the things that I was enduring, I didn't have to endure if I would have just put God first and let Him lead me. So, like I said, them rock bottoms was just like basically all my life because I didn't involve them in nothing that I was doing. So I didn't get no clarity. I wasn't getting convicted like I should. So I always wind up in the same situation, I feel. So we just constantly rock bottom after rock bottom. He'll pull me out, I'll go back down. You pull me up, I'll go back down. So yeah, God has really revealed himself to me and my family, thank God. And it has been a total blessing from like being homeless, from being abused, mentally abused, from dealing with family issues, not feeling accepted, not feeling loved, just starting a family at a young age. I was 17 when I started having kids. So it's just all these decisions I made and went through were the same because of myself. I made these decisions not thinking of God in none of those moments until everything was said and done. And I was like, hey, God, pull me out of this one. How can you get me out of this one? So I had a one-way relationship with him, and it wasn't right. So I'm here now. I'm trying. I'm not perfect, but I'm definitely making sure. Well, God is making sure I'm not hitting no more rock bottoms. And if I find myself struggling, I know that He can get me out of them. But I have a different spirit, so it's just like, how can
Amen.
I say? Yeah, I have a different spirit. Then I didn't.
It's all about the spirit. It really is all about the spirit because that's literally what I was saying. You know, when I was speaking about everything that I was going through, I was like, the enemy was literally trying to get my spirit. And I even talked
Mm-hmm,
about alcohol being a spirit. And not to say that
mm-hmm,
it's a bad thing, to have a drink or two. No, it was more so the spirit behind it. And that is what kept me
absolutely.
in my depression and my rock bottom, because not I was never alcoholic or anything, but it was just the fact that I had to look at myself every time I was going to cope, every time I was going to try to feel good about myself. I always went to partying, going out, and relationships, and just seeking everything else but God, like you said. And so I
Mm,
truly resonate with that. Even the halfway relationship with God, that was so good because it's like it's not until we get to the part where we feel like we can't control anything anymore. Not that we ever had control, but like when
mm-hmm,
we feel like, oh my
mm-hmm,
God, it's nothing I could do no more. God, please help me. And so
absolutely.
that what you said when you okay, so wait till you hear what I said first, because I literally was just talking about like how, I really found a lot of my troubles coming from trying to do things without God. But also, I always
Mm-hmm,
believed in God. I always knew that God was with me, but I never could find peace. And it was because I was choosing everything in the world for my peace to fulfill my voids instead of,
there
help
we go.
choosing God. And even I was talking about how even people will use you to fulfill a void. And so you got to be mindful of who you around and what you're doing. It's not sometimes your intentions can be good, but somebody else could be using you as a void. And that's when you
Mm,
start to conform to that person in that space. And you you wondering why you insecure and your confidence in your mind and you feeling double-minded and all of these things is going on that you maybe wasn't even experiencing, at a time, but it's because you going in spaces and environments where that's what the energy is. And so sometimes we,
Absolutely.
even if our intentions are good, right? We still have to protect ourselves because, boom, if I'm hanging around people who that's all they do for whatever reason, I'm bound to conform to that space. Even if I'm saying, I don't drink, I don't do that, but you always around it. And so you're
Mm-hmm.
at some point in time, if you're not doing that, you'll be doing something else. And that's why the Soulmate podcast is so important, because I know it's a lot of us that are on a journey that is on our path, trying to get on our path, trying to heal and trying to overcome so much stuff, specifically these rock bottoms that we've all experienced. And so many times in our life, we'll be like, yo, that's when I had a dark moment, this time and that time.
Yeah.
And it's like, the more that we come together and find our people, like, okay, well, where you at with it? What happened with you? What's going on with you? What you went through? That we're better together. And so I was worse together at one point. I want to be better together. I want to be around
Mm-hmm.
people and talk to people who, what they're saying could inspire me and what I'm saying could inspire them, or just help each other. So, you really,
Yeah.
really, really,
It's
really.
definitely no bad.
Now I was just gonna say you really, really hit it on the nail with that. That was it.
I know. Listen, it is overwhelming. It's an overwhelming feeling, but it's also like, dang, I'm really blessed. Like, and then you look back. Sometimes the devil wants you to look back and be ashamed and be cringe when you look at those moments that you went in. But God, like, no, embrace those. That was you. You came up out of that. I helped you up out of that situation that you was in, and look at yourself now. Those are moments that me and you sometimes we laugh at, we make fun of, and I'm glad that I'm at that point where I don't look at my past and be like, ooh, girl. But I mean, you're gonna have those moments because you're human, but it's just like, dang, you did that. Like, but glory to God, like He helped you up out of that rock bottom. And I don't look at being, I don't even think I can look at it being the same anymore. Like when you walking with God, rock bottom, where you know
Ooh,
what I'm saying? I wouldn't. He would
hold
never let me
on.
get there.
Hold on. Rock bottom. What's up, rock bottom?
Hello.
But you know what saying that
Yeah.
I love? Rock bottom taught me things that mountaintops never could.
Speak on it.
I would have never known what I
Hmm.
known had I always been in this higher place that I perceive myself to have always been on, or wanted to be on, or wish I
Mm.
was on. It's not, I wouldn't have known what I know. And I think that's the glory of God, where He's like, let me
Amen.
use it. I'll use it. I'll take that. I'll take that. Love that. That was cute. We'll take that. Okay, what's next? You know what I'm saying? And it's like that. I think it's
Mhm.
all a part of, the journey of God saying, I know you're gonna lose your way, right? We're born into sin. We're born into
Mhm.
destruction. We're born into more hate than love. We came into the world as such. And so I know God is like, okay, well, I know who my children are, and they're gonna go through some things, but He never gives up on us. Never.
Amen.
The one thing I could always say is that
Amen.
there was never a time where I was deep in my darkness, depression, or whatever, and I didn't feel like something is pulling me to never give up, even when I wanted to, right? And but also when
Mhm.
I think about it, the reason I was depressed is because what I was experiencing wasn't right, right? Because if it was right, why would I be depressed? Why would I feel
Absolutely.
this way if this is how this is supposed to be? And so the depression and
Mm.
anxiety and the anger, all of that is a signal to my spirit. And
Mm.
my spirit is and my body is signaling something to me.
Mm.
This ain't right. And so we got to be thankful, that we are able to experience those things. Because imagine if we just was on like this pilot mode, right? How would you know when something hurts? How would you know when something doesn't feel good? How would you know when your boundary is being overstepped? And so sometimes paying
Mhm.
attention to our feelings and what we perceive to be rock bottom at a point in our life goes to show, okay, now that I know that, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to feel that again. I don't want to do that again. I know that hurts. I know what that makes me do. I know every time I go out and be around these people, I always end up going home with somebody I don't got no business being with, or I end up calling an ex, or it's those patterns. Like, though it might sound like
Yes.
funny in the moment at the time where it was like, oh, it was cute, we had a good time, but you got to really think about what you do when you're under these influences. And the influence don't mean alcohol or drugs. An influence could be depression. That's an influence. It's influencing you to
Mhm.
not get up. It's influencing you to not try.
And
It's influencing you to sleep all day. It's influencing you in a
and
way.
every time I was influenced, I had another kid.
Oh, let's talk about it.
Knowing dang on well I shouldn't be with this man. And I
Come
knew it.
on.
But every time
Come
I was
on.
influenced, here I go, I go back and come out with another kid.
Let's
But
talk
no,
about it.
heavily on the being influenced. And then you wake up and you're like, dang, what did I get myself into?
Hello.
And you're, mm, that was a word.
Oh my God. I've been a terrible influence on myself. I done made some terrible decisions. And I love what you said about being the reason for your rock bottoms, as far as, what you did in moments where you were so down and you felt so low, where you just did things. And this is not about what happened to you. This is about the things that you did with how you were feeling that added on to that. And so,
Hmm.
I think both spaces need nurture, right? This is what I experienced that I didn't ask for that, right? And then the things that I did that I knew I shouldn't have did, or I had control over that. That's just what I chose. And we can't take those things back, and that's okay, right? It's our life, it's our
Right.
testimony. But I feel like God is so graceful where he lets us look at both sides of the spectrum. Like, okay, that happened to you, right? And this is how
Hmm.
you went about it. This is what you did after X, Y, and Z. And I love looking at both sides of, I wish that didn't happen to me, but also I can see how I could have been better. I definitely could
Absolutely.
have been better. Yes. And that's the best part
That's
about
how I
even
feel.
growing.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
No, because that's what I said. Like being, especially being convicted and having God in your life, you make certain choices. I'm not saying we're gonna make perfect choices all the time. I'm gonna say for me, when you have God in your, when I have God in my life. So now I can look back at certain situations and be like, oh, I could have did this. God has given you that like conviction and awareness to where you can either be in this, go with folly and make these decisions, or you can let me lead you and make this decision. So my decision making is with God. I try to keep it with God. Like I said, I'm not going perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to sit up here and act like I'm perfect. I'm not at all. But I do second guess, well, not second guess, but really check myself before I react to certain things. Or even if I do react, I'm automatically convicted. I'm praying on it, and I'm asking for forgiveness to whoever I offended, whoever the case may be. It's just a different tone, a different reaction. So it's just like if I find myself in those situations, I'm definitely not moving with God. That's not God.
That's good.
Because God is moving within me and I'm making different decisions in my life. And you can just, you can tell. And it feels good too. It feels good. And it also has to do with a part of being surrounded by like minded people too.
Hello.
And
Soulmates
so, like what
podcast.
you were
That's why we
saying, just like you were saying about like especially the company you keep, you're gonna wind up in those same situations that you I just was running from. I don't
right.
want to be that person no more. I don't want to do those things no more. But if I surround myself, I said, wow, I'm going to continue to curse, drink, or whatever the case
Yes,
may be.
whatever the case may be, and I think that's so important. That's something that I really had to realize. Like, if you're gonna make a big change, because the rock bottom is something like you said. I feel like my whole life was rock bottom. I could resonate with that. And so everything that I did from the course of these years, right? 10, 15, 20 years, it's all been the same thing. I've been stuck in the same
Mhm.
thing for so long, right? And so for me to fully make that change, I genuinely have to let go of things naturally,
Mhm.
right? Things have to be separated, isolated, and really being able to form new skin, new heal from those wounds, right?
New
And really
skin. Ooh.
come, oh God, hold on. Hold on. And
That
my
was a
camera,
word. Wait, hold on.
now listen, okay,
Our
new,
girl
and
talk about metamorphosis.
listen,
Hey
literally,
now.
and literally, like I literally had to like clean my flesh and renew my spirit from
Man.
those rock bottoms because they were deep, they were dark, and it was terrible. But even thinking it back to what we was doing day in and day out, and even young 14 years old smoking weed with your friends every day. That wasn't normal. That was not normal. And you don't even realize, you think you're having fun, but you're literally in a darkness. That's darkness to me.
Yeah.
And so God is just so good. We have to wrap up. But I really love
Okay.
this conversation. This was so good. Okay, we had a brief interruption. I apologize about that. So with that being said, I want to thank you again for coming on. You were
Of
phenomenal
course.
today. I wish we had more
Thank you for
time.
having me.
This was amazing. I wish we had more time. I'm looking forward to doing more call-ins. I already could see what God is giving me, giving us. I feel like this is not just my platform. This is everyone's
Amen.
platform. And so I'm looking forward to what God is going to do and all the different people I get to speak to in all these different walks of life. And so I just want to ask you one last question before we go. Just give me one quick
Okay.
thing that you can say your rock bottom has taught you.
It's taught me to always involve God so I won't reach rock bottom
I like
again.
that. I like that.
So just always involve God, put Him first, and I'm telling you, He will not let you reach the crevices of a rock bottom.
Ooh, not the pavement, not the curb, not nothing. I love that. One
Hello.
thing my rock bottom has taught me is that God is king.
Mm,
And that's basically
man.
that's what you said. But when I say God is king and God is everything, God is all, God is God is
Amen.
good. God is so good because
Amen.
without God, I would not be able to be here right now, even having this platform to tell this story, to hear somebody else tell their story. And I also want to say that I feel like my rock bottoms taught me to be myself authentically. And even in my past
Amen.
experience, it has taught me to be myself authentically and that God will use everything. So, with that being said, I want to say thank you for calling into the Soulmates podcast. Your testimony was amazing. I needed
Thank
to hear
you.
that. And peace be with you. And I am praying for you.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for having me. I just want to say that I hope God bless you in all your endeavors and your journey on this podcast. You have something special. So I just know you are blessed and He's going to bless everything you put your hands on. So thank you for having me. I love you.
Amen. Okay, y'all. All right, y'all. So we did have some technical difficulties. Please bear with me. This is my first time doing this. We just had our first calling guest. It was amazing. My camera is actually going to die. So let me give y'all an affirmation of the day, and we are getting out of here before it dies. So, affirmation of the day is I attract abundance because I see abundance in all things. And the scripture of the day is my flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. That is Psalm 73, verse 26. Go in peace. I love you guys. This is the Soulmates podcast. Bye, Soulmates.